Om Shri Saram. I request you all to kindly settle down. I hope you all had a sumptuous lunch. My mind is not working after the lunch. So the feast for the mind continues. The next distinguished speaker for the day is Sri D. Lakshminarayanan, MD of Sundaram Home Finance. Mr. Lakshminarayanan Duraisamy is currently the Managing Director of Sundaram Home Finance Limited. Sir has over 30 years of experience in financial services industry with expertise in risk management, operations and strategy. Sir was the Chief Operating Officer of Sundaram AMC till 2019. Sir joined Sundaram Asset Management Company in 2009, and prior to that, Sir worked for GE Capital India and Australia in various risk management and business development roles across commercial finance, consumer finance and healthcare. Sir started his career with Citibank in retail operations before moving to GE Capital. Sir is a commerce graduate, qualified cost accountant and Master of Business Administration from Loyola Institute of Business Administration, Chennai. I now welcome Sri D. Lakshminarayanan to address the gathering. Sairam.
Good afternoon to all of you. Thank you, Chandrahas, for the nice introduction. Dr. Sai Manohar, the Registrar, Vice Chancellor, members of the faculty, and other distinguished speakers, and my dear students, both here as well as on virtual screen from Anandpur. Good afternoon. The first thing that I would like to say is thank you. This is an extraordinary honor to be here, to be present here and talk to all of you. Having said that, this is a dreaded time to talk. Just after a delicious lunch, when tummies are full and the mind is largely drifting towards a sleep mode. And it's a Sunday afternoon. Thank you, Dr. Sai Manohar, for inviting me and giving me this slot. I was wondering when I was told by him that he's calling in a few expert speakers. And I saw two of them, just before lunch. But I am neither an expert nor a speaker. So I wonder where I fit in here. By the way, your class, both the first year and the second year students that are present here will be amongst the tough ones to graduate from this institution, because some of you started your academic year with the pandemic, with the lockdowns, online learning, variants of COVID and whatnot. You've been through so much over the last 2 years. We've all been through so much over the last 2 years, and we are probably a little bit stronger than ever before. So if you could withstand all of those, I'm sure you will survive my speech. I'll use the time allotted in a few ways. I'll tell you a little bit about who I am, why I'm here, what are some of my experiences, and what is it that, couple of things that you as students can do. These will be largely questions because even I don't know the answers. So who am I? As I said, I'm still trying to figure that out. I was born about 50 years back. My claim to fame is that I share the birth date with Warren Buffett. But the similarities end there. I grew up in Chennai for most of my childhood, where my father was employed. After my class 12, I decided to take commerce because I saw the rest of them take science and go through the struggles. For most parts of graduation, commerce tried me. I completed my cost accounting and MBA later. In those good old days, the choices were generally binary. You either become a engineer, doctor, or you end up being a chartered accountant. It usually worked through a process of elimination. You first choose what you don't want and then just subscribe for the one that is available to you. But you guys have too many choices today, as you will know. I have a daughter who's in class 12 right now. She'll go into college next year. We can't even seem to figure out the discipline yet. Forget about the course, specialization, what we want to do. Some of you might have been there before, a few years before, you chose this institution, but I'm sure that you've made a right choice. We were all very lucky to be in an era when the world was globalizing and India was right in the thick of it. Opportunities opened up at the right time and we found ourselves at the right time at the right place. India, in the late 90s, India was really becoming a destination of choice. As Chandra has mentioned, I joined Citibank first, then moved to GE Capital. I worked there for about 15 years across India and Australia. And then I moved to Sundaram Mutual Fund, and then I am at Sundaram Home Finance right now. Were all of these changes thought through once, or are these stroke of luck? I don't know. But one thing is sure, that you need to be ready to meet opportunities when they come your way. As one of the speakers, mentioned just before lunch, you can't just start preparing when they present themselves. You need to be ready. Why am I doing an MBA today? Why can't I figure that out later? And as you yourselves answered, it's never too late to start, but you need to be ready and be prepared when opportunities strike at your door. Why am I here? During lunch, I was actually trying to recall a similar MBA day. It wasn't called an MBA day during those days, but a similar, conclave happened where a few expert speakers came and spoke. But unfortunately, I neither could remember the name of that speaker nor what he told. So with that reassurance, if I can't make you remember anything, I'll at least keep this short. Should I share some of my experiences, or should I just talk to you and give you some tips on leadership which you've been going through every day in your class? And then finally I said, I'll talk about something very random. What does it take to succeed in corporate India today? There is a saying that if you love what you do, you never have to work a day in your life. I would challenge that. If you actually love what you do and if you have a passion for that, you will actually end up doing a lot more than what you otherwise would do. You will want to make it a success because you know the purpose for which you're pursuing something today. If you stay in your comfort zone, sticking to what you know, you're making a big bet. You're just betting that life and people around you will stay largely constant and nothing will change, and then you will come through that. But you will lose that bet every time, because things are not the same and things are changing, as one of the speakers mentioned earlier. Things are changing pretty rapidly. So there are three things that I'm going to talk about. One, let's talk about change. Parts of what I'm going to talk to you right now was published recently by one of my common friends in the US. And I took the liberty of sharing that, for this audience here. It's quite relevant to what we are talking about today and where we are today. Have you ever cringed when someone asked you, where do you see yourselves 5 years from now? In today's age of technological disruption, envisioning 5 years is quite redundant. You can't see yourself 2 years from now, leave alone 5 years. The jobs that our school-going children will take up when they graduate do not exist today. That's the harsh reality. look at the explosion of careers around cloud computing, blockchain, social media influencing management, podcast management. I mean, none of these, you can't even ask your dad. I mean, forget about your grandfather. You can't even ask your dad what this means because I don't know any of what this means. So, but all of these are jobs that are thriving and people are taking up these jobs. And, if you ask me a job description for any of them, we don't know. We'll have to figure that out. But that's the world that we are living in. Industries are also being challenged by several external factors that change around them. Is there any industry that you can think of that is not impacted by technology today? I can't think of one. This whole bunch of careers around finance and even HR is being now threatened by technology. And when I say threatened, I mean in a very, very positive way. Traditional career paths, where do they take us from here? They are fraught with risk. We all know that. The new generation, most of you that represents the new generation, you guys are asking some fundamentally purpose-driven questions. Is 50-hour work for me? Do I need to work Monday to Saturday? Do I need to work from office? Can I work from anywhere? And pandemic influenced that, in a big way. These are questions that are being asked today. And employers are being challenged to find answers to all of these questions to accommodate the new talent that's coming their way. It's no longer an employer's market, it is now an employee's market. Keeping employees motivated in a job can possibly be the biggest difference to winning and losing in the next 5 to 10 years for large corporations. Those organizations that would succeed would have found an answer to this question. Typically, if you are a recruiter, you will go through consultants, you will go through LinkedIn search algorithms and put, a set of things that you want to search candidates for, and you find matching profiles and then interview them, hire them. Why would it be exciting for someone to do the same job that he is doing in company B to try it out in company B for 30% more? Wouldn't it be different? Wouldn't it be, very different for organizations to hire people with diverse backgrounds to do the same job rather than someone who's done it because he's just going to replicate what he did in company B into company B? And as Mayank himself mentioned in the morning, is that what you want? Do you want to follow what company A did, company B did? Is that how you grow, talent pool in your organization? So these are some of those very hard-hitting questions that we are all, as employers, we are faced with. And these are questions for which we are also struggling to find answers today. Imagine people moving in from sales to customer complaints to handle the nuances of customers. Imagine a technology leader trying to reimagine product innovation. The modern societies are maturing on the philosophy of right to work. Change is inevitable and it's already here. Either we can all adapt to these changes or be left behind. That's the truth behind this. The second one that I want to bring up is on learning. Is learning only for students? Is it for adults or is it for everyone? Is it for junior employees? Is it for senior management? Can everybody learn? I learn every day when I come to work, when I travel, when I meet with people. It should be the same for everybody. The fundamental belief is the more you learn, the better equipped you are to understand what is going around in this company and how do you run this company better. And there are also schools of thought that is being talked about. Do you want to keep a balance between learning and doing the job? Because you need to strike a right balance. I don't understand this concept of striking a right balance. To me, learning is everything. If you learn well enough and you keep learning, you will do well in your job. Learning is not different from doing things. The one thing that I would always ask all of you is to keep learning, never stop learning. Learn from your teachers, learn from people around you. Learning is never enough. If you don't do that, you will fall behind very quickly, so do not stop learning. So the last one, the third point that I want to talk about is, finally we are coming to this topic, is about selfless leadership. One of my previous speakers also mentioned about selfless, and he talked about the difference between selfish and selfless, etc. We all leaders, we all had leaders who have really taken in with their own image in the mirror and so impressed by the power and influence that we all create to others. They want to be the center of attraction. They want to be the first one to put their hand up for all the successes and then look the other way when there is a failure. It's easy for us and it's easy for everyone around them to notice their behavior and see what kind of a leader, a toxic leader that we have in front of us when we find one. And they seem to be unaware of the kind of culture that they seem to be building. But let's turn the mirror to our own selves. The truth is that we lead, the truth is that those who lead see the mirror in themselves. We see through the facades of those above us. So often we forget to serve those we lead and digress to forcing performance from them. No one wants a weak leader, and I'm not suggesting no one should tolerate one. Selflessness is all about strength, and it's not for the faint-hearted. Weakness, on the other hand, takes the path of least resistance. A quote from Colonel Eric Cale from the Military Academy in the United States. One of the best leaders I have had the privilege to follow once told me, to lead is to serve. Nothing more, nothing less. To lead is to serve, nothing more, nothing less. I mean, it's quite profound. We all talked about invisible leadership. We spoke about stealth leadership. Eventually, it's all coming down to leading is to serve. It takes heart and soul to lead in a manner worthy of respect of your followers. You need to be out in the front where the action is, not doing everybody else's job or micromanaging what they are doing. Shoulder the heaviest burden first and set it down last. Being selfless is one of the hardest things to do. We kid ourselves when we refer to tough calls to be taken in organizations. We truly make tough calls when we place ourselves directly in the line of fire. That's the tough call that we can take, not just putting in front of them or pushing someone else in front of them when there is an unpleasant situation. Demand the respect of others and it will slip through your hands like water. But set your heart, minds and hands selflessly, serving those that you lead, and their respect and admiration will only grow. There are a couple of things that I want to leave behind for you. First one is to future ready your career. We've all had this talk. I mean, I've had this talk with a few people whenever I go around meeting people from various colleges. The importance of future ready skills. But what does that really mean? More and more companies are looking to come out of the pandemic stronger than before by pivoting and adjusting their business models. Hiring the right talent with the right skills is an important piece of that. How can I, and as students, you should be asking this question, how can I expand my skill sets and capabilities to be the best candidate for the roles that are present? Your degree could certainly be a key in acquiring the experience that you need to have a competitive advantage in the market, but degree coupled with your inquisitiveness for learning will take you further. The second point is to explore new industries or functions. If you're looking to make a career pivot, go with an open mind and eyes. There are traditional jobs that will be available when you graduate. There will be non-traditional jobs that will also present themselves, and they will all have certain amount of risk. You got to be willing to take risk on yourselves before you push someone else to take that risk on you. Some of you here might even pursue the entrepreneurial path. You typically go and launch your own startups, join an early stage firm, or including the ones that are founded by some of your alumni. Something that you should keep in mind is keep your eyes and mind open for all opportunities. Do not start with saying, I want to be in this line of business, I want to join FMCG companies, I want to join banks or technology companies. Just keep an open mind. You never know where the opportunities are. The last point that I wanted to leave you with is to expand and diversify your network. This is the most important thing when you're here. A part of enrolling in a business school like this is becoming a part of the community of future leaders and well-collected alumni. You have an alumni that you can be proud of. And this is a great institution has developed many of them. All these connections add up, and the case is similar in many other schools as well. You will realize the value of these networks a few years from now. We all try to network even today when we travel, when we meet with people. In today's world, it's not that difficult, but it's not that easy unless you put your mind to it. I'm nearly finished. If you remember nothing else of whatever that I said over the last 15-20 minutes, just remember that the friendship that you all make here will last forever. Just find a way to be in touch with your classmates and with your teachers here, and that will hold you in good stead for the years to come. I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you, sir, for the powerful talk. The floor is now open for questions if some of you have any questions.
Yeah.
Saram sir, I'm Sundar Prasad and I'm also basically from Chennai. So I would like to ask you the same question which I have when I used to travel in the locality. So how do you think that housing finance will develop in metro cities since there is no place to construct a site? Or how do you think you will take on your companies as it is emerging? From next 5 to 6 years, it is going to be emerging market in India. So how do you think that you will be emerging, sir?
Yeah, no, thank you. It was a very different question from what I expected, but I'll see. Cities are expanding. There is certainly, cities are expanding wherever there was a house, there is an apartment complex. So cities are vertically expanding, and the city limits are constantly being pushed. What was once a suburb is now a part of the mainstream city, and and with accessibility, with the metro networks and with the infrastructure, you wouldn't have stayed 50 kilometers from the city 20 years back. Today you don't cringe much when you say that, like, I live in 50 kilometers, because job market has also developed. So I don't think availability of land is an issue, because land is available wherever people want to grow. I mean, if you open an airport 120 kilometers from Chennai, there will be, take Bangalore for instance. Hebbal didn't exist until 10-15 years back when the airport was formed, and then there is a whole community around that area right now. So I think, availability of land is not the issue. The cities are growing. The cities are expanding in all corners. And not only just cities, it's the tier 2 and tier 3 towns are improving. So therefore, there is a big market out there. No, I don't think there is it's not a compromise. I mean, it's just a geographical, it's a geographical change. So therefore, and you can't it's the same everywhere. I mean, the competition is probably the highest in metro cities. So you want to move from metro cities to smaller towns, and then you keep expanding. So therefore, that's how you move businesses around. I know.
Sairam, sir. Sir, am I audible?
Yes.
Sir, as sir has thrown light upon selfless leadership, so my question is, sir, when it comes to leadership, mostly the leaders want to get all the credit instead of distributing it equally to the team members. So, sir, how one can learn to be a selfless leader? Because when it comes to leadership, mostly people would like to take all of the credit into their account, and when it comes to selfless leadership, it will be like crediting your efforts to somebody's account. So how can one be a selfless leader?
Yeah, thank you for that question. And we all spoke about selfless leaders since morning, and none of us said that it's easy. And it is not. That's the hardest part of it. It's, taking credit for something or putting ourselves in front of everybody else when it comes to claiming credit is the easiest thing to do. And that's something that comes naturally to human beings. So how do you change that? How do you develop? And that might give you short-term success. Certainly putting yourself in front, and then, it might cost you your team and the loyalty of your team. But it certainly will get you the next promotion that you want, because you're projecting yourself ahead of your team. But from a long-term perspective, that's not going to work well. So therefore, if you are saying, look, I want to be a selfless leader, I want to develop myself into a selfless leader, you got to be willing to make those short-term trade-offs and say that, look, I want to build a team, I want to build the loyalty of the team. And it doesn't come overnight, but it's something certainly that we all have to work towards. And on day when you start as a leader, you're not a selfless leader, but you certainly have to work towards that. I mean, I don't know if I answered your question directly, but it's a very valid question, but it's not easy being a selfless leader. It's like, telling someone in your class saying, can you, it's like sharing information, sharing knowledge. Everybody wants to withhold information, withhold knowledge, because, you don't want someone else to, get the marks, by the knowledge that you've acquired. But that's a very short-term way of looking at it. So very similar to that, if you want to be a selfless leader, you've got to work towards that.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yes.
Sairam sir, I have two questions, and the second question is for both you and Mayank sir also.
Thank you.
The first question is, the banking sector is growing faster than ever, and it is good to know that recently I read a report that NPAs are reducing gradually, but the trend of issuing bad loans, especially from the time of the pandemic. So how does it affect the growth of the banking sector? Are you still bullish on the banking sector for the next decade?
No, look, the threat of, you mean NPAs, right? Non-performing assets is what you meant. See, non-performing assets existed as long as banking existed. So therefore, it is not a new phenomenon, nor is pandemic, enlarge the scope of NPAs, if I can answer for the banks. There's the recent statistics for any of these banks or people who've declared results over the last, 8 quarters haven't shown any significant increase in NPAs because of pandemic. And I don't think NPAs will determine the growth of banking industries. I mean, NPAs is a very, very vital parameter for the banks and the financial system. But I don't think anything dramatic has changed in our outlook to say that NPAs are alarming, therefore the banking sector will not grow. I mean, banking sector will continue to be the engine of our growth, for all the vision that we have for the Indian economy to grow. Banking sector will play a pivotal role in the next 10 years. And I don't see any concerns on the NPAs that will derail that.
Thank you, sir. And the second question is, sir, as of now, there are a total of 246 million general insurance policies. And in the fiscal year 2021, India standalone health insurances sold nearly 10 million insurance. But although there is an increase in when compared to the previous years, it is still low in volume when compared to the total of 246 million general insurance. So how do you, I mean, how shall we, in what perspective shall we look at this statistics?
You remember what I said? It's a world of abundance, right? In a country of a population of 1.4 billion people, even if general insurance, so I don't know where this 246, but let's assume number for once. If they've covered 246, because that's a lot of them is through the government schemes, there is still 101 billion people still available to be insured. So we don't need to focus on what is done. We need to focus on what's available, right? So I think our vision, our focus should always be on the opportunity unpenetrated, on the white spaces. Why is it that those 1 billion people have not taken? And in fact, one of the reason why health insurance has really picked up in the last decade or so is because of the specialization that standalone health insurance companies brought in. Because ultimately, it's about you buying your own health insurance, not what the government gives you or not what your corporate gives you. In Hindi, we coin a term called "khud ka insurance khud ka hota hai." My insurance is mine. My corporate insurance will not stay with me. My government insurance will not stay with me. And if I age and if I don't have, so we're focused on the retail side, which is why we want you to buy your own insurance. So I think there's space. To my mind, there's space for more insurance, more competition, more, because every time a new player will come in, they'll bring in their own innovation. You don't need to be first in everything. Even if you're a very smart follower, it's great job done. The point is, are you noting what's the trend in consumers and how do you respond fast? In some cases, you may take lead. In some cases, you may respond fast.
Yes, sir. Despite this COVID-19 pandemic and the awareness in which recently the people had known, but still the volume is low.
We look at youngsters like you to promote that, right? That's what we need.
Yes.
The problem in insurance?
Yes, sir.
Youngsters like you don't buy insurance. You all think that, so when you get, you should increase awareness, because insurance, and I'm sorry, I'm going a little theory here of insurance. Insurance is about large mass. It's how did insurance start? In a village, everyone pooled together money and said, if anyone needs it, that pool will be used. Now, if that pool is going to be created only by people who are above a certain age and who have a condition, it will start becoming very expensive for our seniors. So if you want cost-effective insurance when you grow old, buy insurance now and subsidize for your senior folks, so that when you grow old, there's someone else who's subsidizing for you. That's the principle of insurance, and that's what we need to do. Some role government will play, some role all of us will have to play.
Sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, sir, for your powerful talk. Again, I find a lot of parallels between what sir mentioned and some of the things that Swami used to say. Sir talked about, only a servant can be a leader. Bhagavan used to say that only a Kinkara can be a Shankara. Kinkara meaning servant and Shankara meaning leader. Thank you, sir, for your inspiring words. I would now request Professor Sanjay Sani, sir, Controller of Examinations, to kindly come forward and offer a token of love to. Thank you, sir, for taking time out of your busy schedule. I hope you come back to Prasanthi Nilayam again and again and enrich our students. Yes, sir, Anantpur also. I now request Dr. Deepak Anand, sir, to come forward and carry on the proceedings.
Om Shri Sai Ram. I once again thank Mr. Lakshmi Narayanan for his valuable insights on leadership and values for life. In fact, it was exactly as if Swami was speaking to us about the 5 human values and how we have to look at a larger picture in life. We have to give to others what we really in the end want to receive for ourselves. Thank you very much, sir, for your lovely lessons which really went straight into our hearts. Now I have the very pleasant responsibility of inviting our own alumni who have passed the hallowed portals of this very institute, and as Lakshmi Narayan sir said, who have made their alma mater proud. And we have a very illustrious list of the alumni here, and I would request some of the students to kindly shift some chairs, around 5 of them here, in a semicircular fashion. So as I call upon the names and give a very brief intro, they could kindly come and take their places here on the stage. Yeah, 5 would suffice. Thank you very much, boys, and Chandrahasa. I would first take the opportunity to call upon Brother Ram Gopal, CEO of Barclays Bank India. Please welcome him. As you know, Mr. Ram Gopal is responsible for the design and execution of country strategy that supports the financial performance and market position of Barclays Bank in India. Thank you very much, sir, for being a part of this Ask Me Anything round. Second, I would call upon Sri Rangarajan Krishnan, CEO, 5-Star Business Finance Limited. Brother Rangarajan is a well-acclaimed finance professional with about 15 years of work experience across commercial banking, private equity investment, project finance, and advisory. So thank you very much for being one of the panelists here, Rangarajan. The third panelist today is Sri Anand Nergunam. Please, sir. Global Vice President, Revenue Management and Growth, Zoho Corporation. Welcome to the revered Chancellor of the Institute. Thank you, sir, for being with us this afternoon. We now have an Ask Me Anything round of panel discussion here, sir. And all the alumni, illustrious alumni of the Institute are here to answer the questions of the boys, which they may have with reference to their careers, their growth in their organizations, and how to reach the goals that they would like to achieve in their lives. And as Swami would expect, Swami would always say, low aim is crime. And that is why I think here is a panel which can answer all your doubts from both the campuses, where we can clarify and move faster and straight onto the path which will lead us to success. So we have 3 panelists here. The 4th panelist, I would invite Shri Bharat and Sundaram. Bharat is the Vice President, Everest Group, which provides GBS, which is Global Business Services, and runs GCCs, which is Global Capability Centers, which are advisory services that help organizations achieve new levels of efficiency, agility, performance, value, and digital maturity. Thank you, Bharat, for being with us for this AMA round. Last but not the least is my own dear brother, Sri Jitendra Punjabi, CEO, EM Investco Capital Advisors. As you are aware, Jitendra is a global equity strategist with around 20 years with US $3 trillion capital group companies from Los Angeles. He now runs a boutique advisory firm called EM Investco Capital that focuses on mix of macro research, global strategy research, and bottom-up research. So now the floor is open and the time is available for you all to raise your questions and get your coveted answers from this illustrious panel. Thank you, Sairam.
Sairam, sir. I'm Kumar Shubham from 2nd MBA. My question is to all the panelists. First of all, thank you for being among us, and we are privileged and honored to be mentored by you. My question is, why does not the prestigious organizations participate in the catalyst programs of our college? Like, there have been participation, but not that significant. Like, what is lacking from our end as in students, where we are lagging behind, so that we can attract more and more organizations, prestigious organizations such as yours? And can we expect in this academic year, your prestigious organizations being the part of our catalyst program? And so my request is, can everyone answer this question?
Sairam, I never expected it to be easy, but this is a tough first question to start with. The Catalyst program, and I represent Barclays. I think we have a huge history of having worked together. I think when I joined the company way back in 2007, we had aspiration to be in the retail business and in the middle market SME business. That was the time where we used to hire, many hundreds of people. And it felt appropriate, therefore, to have close association with the Catalyst, the alumni who work under the Catalyst, campaign, work closely with them to identify students who could join us. I think right or wrong, the cycle turned with the global financial crisis. That was a business that we had to exit finally. So where we are now is we are a boutique corporate investment and a private bank, about 500 of us. So not many hiring happening, but we have a large captive business, as in we do a lot of work for our global businesses, where there are about 30,000 colleagues of us in that organization. So there we are actively involved. In fact, so much so that, if I look back in my own career, I would think I started with Citibank, and that happened only because alumni who were in Citibank had given such a good account of themselves that we almost had an entitled pass into the organization. So there are lots of Swami students in Barclays. I remain very hopeful that time will soon come where we will be back to our glorious 2007 days. I look forward to that.
Sairam, as Ram Gopal said, this was a first googly to receive right up front. I work for Zoho, as you all know, and the difference with a company like Zoho is we look for people with skill sets and we are against credentialism. So the moment we talk to a company like Zoho, honestly, it does not matter what degree someone carries, whether it is an MBA or whether it is X or Y. So for them, if you match the skill sets that they are looking for, they would be open to hire people. Okay, so if I'll be very open to introduce our students. The expectation they would have, particularly being a technology company, we are not so much of a flashy commercial organization. So our products speak for itself, and the max we do is do some good marketing around the products. And that marketing that we do is not about spending money in Google AdWords. This is about content-based marketing. Content-based marketing in a technology company would mean that you really need to be able to do justice to the technology that you're representing, but also be good at telling a story in a very truthful way. So we'll be very happy to look at all of you and be part of this. As I said, provided you come in with the skill sets, and those skill sets are content-based marketing. And, or if you are a technocrat and you want to be a part of this, we always keep hiring. We'll be very happy to involve our students as well.
Yeah, I'll make a slightly different comment to the question, to this question, right? So I've been engaged with our boys and our batches over many, many years, and I found they're really good. They're really solid. They ask the right questions. They're very engaged. The two aspects where I think a slight improvement could happen is one, they need to get a little more plugged in and get more market savvy. And we talked about that last night, right? So plug into what's going on in the world, be more plugged into what data is talking about, and through various websites and stuff, but just be a little more plugged in. And I've helped a lot of boys. In fact, in my own company, I have one of our boys from 2018 working, and he's doing a damn good job. But I'll tell you, I'll tell you how I got a job. So Swami told me, you go. And he said, you go and you apply. That's it. He left me there. First, he said, he'll give me guidance. I sent out 100 letters to 100 companies, and I said, whichever company Swami wants to give me the job from, I will join that company. The first letter that the few guys called me for interview, the first offer I took that letter, I came running to Swami and said, Swami, I got this offer. So the point is, I think don't undersell yourself, work in a more confident fashion, be a little more plugged into markets. And I'm telling you, the boys are doing really well. If I see HDFC Bank or I see a lot of other places, Barclays, for example, at what levels they've reached, like Pushkaraj and all. So I'm actually very, very proud of our boys, and I'm proud of that I'm part of this institution. So I would not be defensive on this one.
If I can just add to what brother mentioned, right? And I'm going to share an experience which happened to me during the MBA days. So it was Bhagya sir's class. He was giving out internal assessment papers. So when the mark sheet was given, he actually called me up front. Obviously, you wonder why sir is calling, but generally it doesn't happen. So going next to him and standing, he asked me, how did you do the test? I thought I actually did reasonably well. But when that question came, I started shaking. Okay, maybe something's really gone wrong. He actually gave my paper back to me. I had gotten actually a full on that. Sorry, not to brag or anything, 25 on 25. But then he said, this means nothing if you don't have the confidence that you have actually performed well. One of the points, my biggest takeaway from that experience was, just like how brother mentioned, we often kind of get into a mode or need for an external validation. And I can say from experience, I don't think even, it comes very quickly. Maybe once you go through industry, when you start seeing a lot of people, you realize the value that we as alumni bring in. But having the doubt or a validation to say that only when certain big brands are going to come in as part of a program means that our MBA or our skills are actually valued is a big myth. I think we all will give ourselves a pat on the back, this batch included, 5 years down the line when you see how the market is and the kind of skills we bring in. Just reflecting on few more points that was said in the morning, right? Our MBA program is for life. It's not just for a specific job or a specific role that we are looking to enter into. And having that conviction and belief that, you know, Swami is going to be there throughout with us. And that is the case. You will all start seeing that happen in different shapes, different forms as this progresses. You will clearly see the difference. But I know I've dodged the actual question. So coming back, you know, I work as part of Everest Group, and we are into advisory services for the whole services sector in itself. Every year, while we may not formally come for campus, I can assure you that at least I send all the resumes that we get to our HR, we evaluate internally. There have been instances where our alumni have, you know, applied or even applied for these HR rounds. Some even after working elsewhere for a few years, they have applied and so on. So sometimes visiting campus could also be a function of the scale at which certain organizations may look to hire or the timings at which they may want to fill certain roles. So the alumni network is very strong, especially the Catalyst program. And you'll also soon start seeing is as you pass out, you start being a part of this, you will realize that while there may not be too many flashy names coming into the campus, the visibility that our resumes get is pretty far and wide.
I'll add a slightly different perspective to this discussion. So I passed out in 2002, and we were the first batch to be benefited from a Catalyst program. So I think we all got recruited by HDFC Bank in the first Catalyst program. So I'm deeply grateful to the Catalyst program from that perspective. But as soon as I joined, I realized that we were all picked up as a batch called executive trainees. And then in the equal batch, we also had people who were called management trainees. Both of us passed out in 2002, but our institute was called executive trainees. And there was people who come from tier 1 institutes, as they call it, ISB, IIM. So these kind of institutes, they were called as management trainees. So that was a big shock to me. I didn't realize that people will discriminate at this level. But, you know, I went deep into it, and I wanted to make sure that at some point I wanted to prove that we are not anything lesser than the ISB or the IIM. So to the extent that I went and did a second MBA from ISB. So I did an ISB MBA after 5 years of work experience. So I did it in 2008. So being very objective about this whole question, campus recruitment is the final result of what you see. You know, you can't just expect companies to come to campus recruitment suddenly, but it's the year-long engagement that the companies have with the campus which makes them automatically come to the campus recruitment. So if I were to look at my own reflections about what happens in an ISB program, I think throughout the year there are case studies, you know, there are company-led interviews which happens, there are mock sessions which happens, there are industry panel discussions which happens. Right? There are multiple things where specific companies are targeted, and you know those companies engage with students not just on those 2-3 days of interview availability, but you know they get to actually evaluate students right through the year. This is not just an open discussion, but it's also about, you know, I like this batch of 10 people or 20 people, and I want to target and keep an eye on, you know, how they are going over the program, so that at the time of campus recruitment, it becomes an easy choice for the company and for the student to make a really choice. So I think our institute is probably doing a lot more today than what it was doing 20 years back. But maybe a few more things can be added to that extent.
Thank you, brothers, for so graciously answering the question. I think that was pretty intense.